Becky Dowd, and this is The Journey to Salvation. Join me as we walk alongside real people and hear the unique journeys that led them to faith in Jesus. My guest today is Nannette McClanahan. Hello, Nannette.
Hey, Becky.
How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I just saw you last night, didn't I?
I believe I did see
you. You fed me dinner last night. Thank you for that. It was good. Nannette, I was just trying to think about how long we've known each other, and I might have known your sister before I really knew you, because your sister's daughter and my daughter were best friends growing up.
That's right.
And got to know your sister a little bit better. But then over the last few years, I think we've been a little bit closer, and just being in church together and different things, activities together, hanging out with each other at each other's houses and that sort of thing. But thank you for coming in today and sharing your story.
Glad to be here.
So let's just start out. How was it growing up for you? I said that you had a sister, and I know your parents. I really like your parents too. Been out there to their house quite a bit, but just give us a little background information.
I had an absolutely blessed and privileged life. I'm 49 years old, and my parents are still alive. I'm grateful for that. Wonderful people. It is just me and my sister, even though we have 400 cousins, and a lot of times our family we get mistaken, like who are siblings and who are not, but it is just me and my sister, and my mom and dad. And growing up, I was very close. We lived relatively close to my dad's mom and dad, so we were close to them. Had a really great relationship with them and with my mom's mom and dad as well. And I was even thinking today, I was blessed even to know great-grandparents. I had a great-grandmother and a great-grandfather that passed away, probably when I was in my 20s. So kind of amazing, but I got to have all those people influence and be in my life. Mm-hmm. We were raised in church. My dad actually did not go with us. That's something I found out quite recently from my mom, which was interesting to me. But so my dad's family was Assembly of God. Mm-hmm. My grandfather was very active. You would not go to his house and unless he was taking a nap, he would be sitting in his recliner with his Bible in his lap. And he actually didn't know how to read, like when he was younger, but he had taught himself to read and would read the Bible. And that was such an inspiration to all of the grandkids who were able to witness that. And he didn't just read the Bible, but he lived it. But so what I found out recently was that because my dad did not go to church with us, my grandmother, my grandfather on the Taylor side, it was his wife, actually gave my mom a blessing to, she was like, like, don't feel like you have to go to this church. It was closer to where we lived. Mm-hmm. But so my mom would actually drive us 3 times a week out to the church where she was raised, which was out by her parents. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's the church I grew up in. I had the same pastor for the first 18 years of my life.
Oh, wow.
And that's just remarkable, especially I feel like in a small town, I felt like it was remarkable. Yeah. But so that did solidify a lot in my spiritual life. I would say when I was around 10 years old is when that pastor gave it. He preached a sermon, and I'm actually terrible at telling stories, so I apologize. But it was like a baseball game, and it was like, if you know that, Jesus came, to die for your sins, then you've gotten to first base. And, if you're ready to, make him Lord of your life, that's second base or whatever. And listening to that sermon, I was like, oh yeah, like I'm there. That, I had the head knowledge that, I, was needing to make it to home plate, that day. Mm-hmm. And so I did. I went up, and I was baptized. And really felt good about things. I felt like until I was in my 20s. I was actually pregnant with my oldest daughter, Micah, and I was married. We had gone to a revival, and it was a man from Marion, Arkansas, that preached the revival. I couldn't tell you his name, but he preached about the seed that falls on the hard ground and doesn't take root. And that night, the Holy Spirit got a hold of me, and I knew that even though I had walked the aisle, even though I'd been baptized as a child, that my salvation was not real. And so I went up that night, prayed with, you said don't mention people's names. I prayed with Brother Fink, who was a man that I loved. And then his son actually also got saved the same night I did. And it was the same thing. It was like we had these, like I think we'd been raised, that was the thing. Like we'd been raised in these Christian homes and up to that point, I was a very good girl. You like to say that makes a good boy. I was a very good girl. Like, I tried to do all the right things. I did not want to go outside the lines, or color outside the lines. And so I was a very good girl up to that point. And, but I realized that night that I was not saved. But like I say, that I received the Holy Spirit that night. The next day I was actually working at Cross Bank, which was Cross County Bank then. And I specifically remember being on the elevator in that bank, and going up. I was working in the note department at the time, and I remember being in the elevator that next morning after the revival, and I thought, I'm a different person. And I wanted so badly, because, whenever it happens, you just want to scream from the rooftops. And I just remember thinking, I want people to be able to see that change in me. I wasn't ashamed at all. I was just, I just wanted people to see that I was a new person. And that wears off after a while.
Yeah, and I think also you want everyone else to have what you have.
Oh, yes.
What you're going through. And so you're excited to share that with people.
Yes. I don't know why, but I remember the elevator. And that's place like actual physical locations. That is one thing in my testimony that is so important to me. But so I do remember. I remember being there on the elevator and just thinking, when these doors open, I just hope these people realize that I'm a new person.
Yeah.
So after that, I was baptized at Wynn Baptist Church, and then that's where my story gets, I guess, a little muddy, because I knew that I was saved. So I had Micah. I'm going to say I was 20. I think I was 24. I remember my 25th birthday being so dark. I was so sad. And I just remember thinking, I'm 25 years old and this is not what I want my life to be like. And once I had Mila, my second daughter, I do know for sure that I struggled with postpartum depression. And that may have been somewhat what's going on then. Anyway, but so I had given my life to the Lord at 24. But so then somewhere around my 25th birthday, between 25 and 28, I just really, depression set in for me. Circumstances in my life just really wore on me. And I remember I'd read my Bible. I remember I would pray. And honestly, it was during that time. That was the first time I was on my knees praying in my bedroom. And we had some drama going on at work, and I would pray over all of my coworkers, but there were a few I'd leave out because they weren't nice to me, and I'm not going to pray for those people, But I remember being on my knees in my bedroom, and I remember, not the audible voice, but that was the first time the Lord said names to me. The names of the people that I had omitted. And there's a Beth Moore story that goes along with that for me. And I have it saved in the photos of my phone, my favorites in my phone, because it's such a good story. But, it's like Beth had prayed about this person that had done her so wrong. And finally, the Lord was like, okay, just tell me what you want me to do with them. And she was like, you just put her, and that was the thing. The Lord put me in my place. Mm-hmm. He knew I was omitting those people, and you cannot do life with Christ and keep holding hands with the world. And that's what I was doing even in that moment, Mm-hmm. I was allowing myself to exclude these people, but the Lord reminded me that he still loved them. Mm-hmm. I really tried to find myself through those years, those 3 or 4 years there. But along the way, I had changed jobs, I'd changed careers, and I can look back now and see, but I would change careers, change vehicles. You do different things like materially, but
to think that would bring you contentment.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. But even though I had Christ in my life, I did not have the contentment. Mm-hmm. And I remember that we had bought my dream home. We had just closed on my dream home, and I knew. I was like, oh, this is why did I do this? Because I've just dug a deeper hole. And again, it was me doing everything on my own. I wasn't trusting the Lord in any of this, mm-hmm. So anyway, that immediately led to an affair in my marriage. I committed adultery. Not proud of that at all. But it is part of my story. Mm-hmm. And the part that I was going to get to that I had written down, I ended up committing adultery. I did have an affair. I ended up divorced. There was so much shame that came from that for me. And it was a turning point for me spiritually. But even in the sin, and especially in the sin, I knew that I was saved. Mm-hmm. And it was a very humbling experience. Mm-hmm. I know, I said just a while ago, I was in the elevator when I had that one moment. I mm-hmm. I remember sitting in the driveway of the man's house that I was having an affair with. And I knew that the Lord was saying, why are you doing this? Why? Mm-hmm. And it was just really hard, because I was just in a really bad spot, and I don't know how to explain it. I was choosing the flesh over the mm-hmm. spiritual. Yeah,
that's what we were talking about a minute ago, that even though we're saved, we still have that sinful nature.
Yes.
And we can either feed it or feed our spirit nature.
Yes.
And whatever we choose to do will lead us down some of those paths.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, you can look at it, and that's, I've talked about earlier that I was so good growing up, and that's the thing. You can analyze it from, 4,000 different directions. Mm-hmm. But what I always want to be evident was I had a choice, and I chose sin, Mm-hmm.
And we do that because we think the other side's better.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The grass was greener for sure.
Yeah. And then we realize maybe it's not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And now whenever I do see other couples that are going through the things that I went through at that time, mm-hmm. Again, you just want to scream and tell them, it's not, you're just so blinded in mm-hmm. the moment of what life's about, and especially when you have kids. That was the sad part of it, and that's one thing I for sure want to say in this is I don't deserve to have the relationship that I have with my children now. And my girls are two of my closest friends. Mm-hmm. I am remarried, have a beautiful blended beautifully blended family. And one of my stepdaughters, she is that iron that sharpens iron. I mean, she stayed at the house a few weekends ago talking till 11 o'clock at night about about discipleship, and she gets me and she challenges me, and so anyway, that's just, I love that the Lord took all that brokenness and made something beautiful from it. But again, I want to be clear that I don't think that would have happened without me admitting my fault. I mean, I was completely to blame, I had a choice and I made the wrong choice. And I just want to be sure that I make that clear. It was no one's fault but my own.
Yeah. Well, and thankfully God we can't undo what we did in the past.
Right.
You know, and that's why God forgives us for those things. And hopefully we'll move forward closer in a relationship with Him, walking in our spirit nature.
Well, and for me, it has made me be so much less judgmental of other people, and that's, I can say thank God that I went through that, because it
doesn't give you more compassion for those, especially as they're going through those type of struggles.
Absolutely. Yeah. And before that, that's a funny story, but so my ex-husband, my current husband, whenever we worked together at a brief time before we were married, I wouldn't speak to him because he was an adulterer. And I was like, I'm not wasting my breath to speak to you. And anyway, that's, how the tables turned, know, and then I ended up committing the same sin. And like I say, it really does help to minister to those people when you're not judging them for the circumstances that they're in.
Yeah. And I think y'all have a good relationship with everyone there in your blended family. And
yeah, that's amazing. And I think you don't want me to talk about it too much, but
no, you go ahead.
Well, so oh my goodness. I do have this in my notes to talk about, but so, we did foster, we did adopt, but so Mark had 3 children, when we were married. I had my 2 girls. And then once we got married, we ended up having a son together who is 16. And then a few years ago, we adopted, and we have a 7-year-old son. And so the 7-year-old had stayed the night with his sister, who is an adult and has a 7-year-old of her own, if anybody's keeping track there. But so yesterday morning, he actually went to church with her, and she sent me a picture of my adopted son laying on Mark's ex-wife's lap, asleep at church.
Oh, wow.
And that's like, you just can't even
imagine that would happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that was sticky situations. Like even in our divorce papers, it said that my children had to continue to attend the church that we were attending. And so then I started dating Mark, and Mark's ex-wife was my girl's Sunday school teacher. And, things could have been so ugly, but it wasn't. And I just thank God for that, like for using that.
Because that wouldn't have benefited anyone at all. And
no.
And now they have, that support and love from.
Yes. And it's confusing.
Yeah.
It's confusing when the 7-year-old's like, what do I call her?
Yeah.
But I love it. I wouldn't want it any other way. It just goes along with how crazy we are. So anyway.
Yeah.
The funny thing about just in the timeline part of it, I talked about having the same pastor the first 18 years of my life. Mm-hmm. And so now we attend the Bridge Church. Dustin has been my pastor here for the last 6 years. Prior to that, he was my Sunday school teacher for 10 years. So I have had these really strong, I just feel so blessed that it's been that way.
Yeah.
Anyway, I have had some really strong leadership in my life.
Yeah. And I think that makes a difference in your walk with the Lord too.
Yes.
Just having that consistent person, spiritual person, instead of, not that we can't benefit from other people, but that probably is beneficial to have those strong spiritual leaders in our life for a long time.
It is, or it has been for me.
Yeah.
So, adultery, that was something that growing up, there are so many verses in the Bible that speak very strongly about adultery. Mm-hmm. And I will say, just until it has not been like once I was removed from that situation, I did have a lot of remorse. I remember I would just repent and beg the Lord to forgive me, which was so hard for me because, again, I knew when I did it that I was doing wrong. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know if the Lord could forgive me for that, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And just recently I actually had a friend who really dove into some Bible verses out of Romans with me and really elaborated how I had misinterpreted some of that. Not letting myself off the hook any, but just talking about how the verses that I'd really used to beat myself up with was really talking more about the law and how it's impossible to keep the law. And that's why we have to have
grace
and Jesus, you know? And so that's been so freeing for me. Since she went into such detail and explained that to me. And again, I'm not trying to let myself off the hook in any way. I just, it really did. It has helped me immensely to be able to move forward and past that. And I think it's very important. And the other part of that is, and like she said, and I've had other people say, you have trouble getting past it because Satan doesn't want you to get past it either. He wants you to keep going back and saying, well, I can't do this because, I can't be on Becky's podcast because I'm divorced and I got a divorce after I was saved.
Yeah.
But the enemy does want to, use that to discourage people. And
like I said, we can't undo what was done, but God can use you in that as you speak to other people, because you probably have had people come to you that were wanting to go down that path of getting divorced and wanted you to condone it because of what you did.
Yes. That has happened a lot.
Yeah.
That's happened a lot, which I didn't ever think about happening until, Mark's actually the one who pointed that out to me early on. He was like, people will come to you and want you to condone what they, what they're doing. And you've got to be real careful not to. And, and he was right. I mean, I don't know of a situation where I've ever encouraged it for sure. Mm-hmm. I will say once, Mark and I were married, and we did, we attended church regularly, which was weird. Weird because I think around that time we were both required by our divorce decrees to continue attending church, especially if the children are with us. So it was a little odd.
And why was that odd? Because of the fact that...
Yeah, you just, the shame. For me, it was the shame,
Yeah.
I did not want to go to church knowing that I was in sin. I was living in sin, or I felt like I was still living in sin, in the unforgiveness. And again, you can edit this out if you need to, but I had actually said when I was single that, Mark was the one person in when I would never date. And so, and then when we started dating, I don't know. I was just thrown into a lot of situations there that I was uncomfortable with because I am actually a very private person, or I used to be. Now I feel like I'm just an open book. But I was at the time just a very private person. And I almost felt like I was, what's the right word? Kind of shining a light on myself, maybe, by showing up to church, even though I was living in sin. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? Like, I'm here, so everything's fine. And I knew I knew it wasn't fine.
Yeah.
And I just didn't. So that was difficult, but we did continue to go. And that's when we ended up in Dustin's Sunday school class. It was so funny because Mark was a lot older than the other people in that class, and we had jumped around to a lot of different classes, and it was just, and so even now, I think he's recently changed it to you to make fun of for being so old, but it was always Mark in Sunday school. Like, Mark was always like the geriatric member of the class. Everybody was having babies, and we were, way past that at that point. Yeah. Or we thought we were until we adopted a 7-year-old. So, but yeah. So, and once we started, I just have it on my timeline as rebuild. Because I just don't know of a better way to put it. Especially there was one night, and this was just really critical to my testimony. But there was a night that I had a really bad day at work. I had gone home and I had a drink, and Mark and I had decided to go to eat at the Chinese restaurant, and I guess it was like maybe a Monday or Tuesday after a Razorback game. But anyway, we bumped into Kirk and Carly Owens, and we were going through some stuff with Mick at school. And Mick was actually born severely dyslexic. We had been told that he would never read. He had really struggled, and we were just at this point of not knowing what to do with what we had. At that time, he was having blood pressure issues. And he was like in 3rd grade and like really high blood pressure. And it was just like, he was just holding in all the, the pressure and the anxiety or whatever. And it was wearing on him. So anyway, we ran into, Kirk and Carly at the Chinese restaurant. And, I had asked her, because based on where they lived, I was surprised that their kids went to cross-county schools. And so I'd asked her that night about why they decided to send their kids to cross-county schools. And her response was a Bible verse. And I was so dumbfounded. And it just, that moment catapulted me spiritually. I don't like to talk on the phone. But anyway, I literally chased her down probably within the next month after that conversation. And I said, Carly, like, I need to know, how did you get to that point? Where a person asks you a question, as simple as, why do your kids go to cross county? And her response was it was a Bible verse out of Psalms or Proverbs. And I'm like, that's where I want to be, and I had come that far, I guess, from, being the good girl to being the bad girl to, trying to rebuild my life, and really seeking the Lord. And like I say, that moment with Carly, and I remember I went to her house. She was really, she really wanted to make sure I was saved. But again, I can tell you now, I knew I had that nailed down, but I wanted to be able to share Jesus with people. And I just was not to that point. And so she, really gave me some tips. And that's really when I started, praying so, diligently. anyway, she gave me a lot of great tips. I don't know that she told me, but that's around the same time that I started reading The Calling, which was a devotional book. And it's real easy to read. But I would read that, like it may have a verse at the top and maybe a verse at the bottom, or maybe 2 or 3 verses from the Bible. But then just a short devotional. It was just something I could do in the mornings, before I went to work. Very, very doable. But the Calling, I do a lot of times encourage people to start there if they aren't deep in their walk, because it was just, like I say, so doable, very basic, but it was life-changing for me. I may be getting off topic here of what you want me to talk about, but I love podcasts. That was another thing in my job. I had, probably around that same time, I had changed jobs and was commuting an hour in the morning, an hour in the afternoon. And so I would listen to a lot of Christian books and podcasts. And I really started seeing just growth in my life from that. And then I don't know why I wanted to touch on that, but I just after my salvation experience, and then after I went so far away, I just so desperately wanted to get back. And I felt like I wanted to make up for all those lost years, And so it was really important for me to learn as much as I could. And I'm still, the more I learn, the more I realize that I don't know anything at all. But so Carly was such an impact on me there. And I love when people come to me now and ask, where do I start? What do I do? I love that that I get to be a resource. Yeah.
Well, and there's nothing like being in the middle of what God has for you and being in the middle of His will and His work.
Absolutely.
And you just can't, there's just nothing like that. And that's where you were trying to get back to.
I should have a better timeline, Becky. But at some point, it was whenever we were still meeting in the Merriman, but Dustin preached a sermon about adultery. Not adultery, but adultery. And that sermon was also very impactful on me. And I realized I had spent 20 years in banking and finance. And whenever he preached that sermon, I knew that my job was an idol in my life. Anyway, that was also a very, it was a turning point for me, realizing that I had this idol in my life. And that's one thing, just an overview of the last 10 years of my life. I feel like when I seek out the Lord's will for my life, He lets it be known to me, if that makes sense. And that's a lot of people.
Instead of seeking out what you think it is, but actually seeking what He has for you.
And even asking and I've been praying about revival, for several years now. And He revealed to me over the summer, I would love to send a revival, but there's going to have to be repentance first. And I've talked about this with people, but it just I don't even know how to verbalize it, but He just has this way of letting me see, He wants the things that I want to happen, and that's because the things that I want are things that
bring Him glory,
and He's created that desire in me. You know what I'm like, and so, but anyway, that's one thing. And just growing, but so knowing about my job being an idol in my life, that was such a turning point. And then after, right there in the middle of all that, we also opened a restaurant. And I don't know if you wanted me to speak about that at all, but that was some that's on the timeline. It says the restaurant. That was some of the darkest times in our marriage, in our lives. And it was something that we really had very pure ambition for. We did, through the bridge, feel like it was an opportunity to create jobs in our community, to build a community with people that they may not be Christians, but they could see our Christian values, that they could, just hopefully see Jesus in us. But that was some really tough times. And I ended up leaving my job in banking and finance. That was an idol in my life, and going to work full time at the restaurant. And that's something I had never desired to do.
Well, and the bad thing too is y'all opened the restaurant, and how soon after that did COVID?
2019 was September of 2019. And in fact, I was so hands off that I was on a girls' beach trip when they opened. Like, I got pictures. People would send me pictures and were like, the food was great. We had a great time. And I was like, good for you. Because I do not care. That is Mark's baby. Yeah. And I'd given him my blessing, but I had no desire to be any part of it. And then
COVID hit.
Our manager left. And it was 4.5 years of just really dark times. And there was really good stuff too. I mean, that's, I still have relationships with a lot of the people that did work with us at the restaurant. And I really did try to.
That's just a hard business to be in a small town.
Oh, it was so hard. Yeah. It was so hard. And struggling with depression in the past. I'm not going to lie, but that was, it was so demanding. And so consuming. My phone rang off the hook, especially with cell phones have changed our lives completely. But I mean, it was constant, and you had to have social media just for advertisement purposes and stuff. And I'm not a huge fan of social media, but so then I had to have it for the restaurant, and it would wear you down. And so, in the middle of that, also at the end of 2020, probably November, we were approved to foster. And so we took our very first foster child in November of 2020. But so that was just hard stuff. And with, juggling the restaurant and then we taken on this foster teen and it was just really hard times in the McClanahan household. That very first foster, we ended up closing, having to have him removed. So ironically, I was able to run into that boy about 2 years ago at the courthouse. He recognized me. He thanked me. And I was just astonished because I just thought it was such a horrible experience for him. And, but he thanked me and seemed to remember the good stuff more than the bad stuff. Thank God. Yeah. But yeah, that was a whole thing. And so then the story with Zane, we don't even have time to talk about that. But so we did end up, we actually closed our home after that first failed foster opportunity. But because of COVID, I had babysat our grandkids on a Friday, and Sonny called me and was like, hey, there's a little boy. The people that were supposed to keep him over the weekend got sick. They have COVID. Could you keep him? And he's the same age as our grandkids. And I was like, I didn't even ask Mark. I was like, sure. And so we brought this little boy home and we fell in love with him. And we had a fun time. And we sent him away. Like Sunday, we sent him back. And then like 2 weeks later, Sonny called and was like, you're the first contact because he's been removed from his home. And so we took him back.
But it was too then?
Yes. And yes.
I remember when y'all would come to church with him and he would not even look at you. I mean, he was just so, I don't know if it's bashful or just what he had been through, but now you see him, he owns the place. He walks through the church doors like, here I am.
He, that he came back temporarily. And then I remember we had gone to Walmart that Sunday night. We were supposed to take him and turn him back in that Monday morning. And Mark said, call Sonny and ask where he's going. And so called, and she said he'll be sitting at the office until we can find a place to put him. And Mark said, well, we're not bringing him back then. And so we kept him for 5.5 months and fell absolutely in love with him. And then they came back and said he was going back home. And Mark and I actually we had won a trip to Jamaica. And and so we were catching a plane, and so Mila actually had to take Zane and drop him off at school. Bless her heart. I hated that's how that all happened. But and the whole family, because the grandkids had just bonded with him, and so he went away for like 2.5 years.
Back to his family.
Back to his biological family, and but then he ended up being returned to foster care. And then we also were the first phone call when that happened. Actually, I don't know that we were the first phone call when that happened, but we were one of the first phone calls. And of course, I mean, it was just like, yeah, and I know my mom has asked since, she was like, what were y'all thinking? And I'm like, there was no thought involved.
Yeah.
And that actually goes along with my life verse, which is 2 Corinthians 5:13-15. And it says, for if we are out of our mind, it is for God. And verse 14, it says, for Christ's love compels me. And it goes on to say that Christ died for all. And I have been accused of being crazy. And so I just love that verse because it says, if I'm crazy, I'm doing it for God. And that was the thing around that time. Like I say, I had grown so much in reading the word. But you can't read the word. And James is the very first book of James. You care for the orphans and the widows. And there was no way that I could say no to that phone call. And at that time, the parental his parental rights had been terminated, and anyway, I mean, we had kept a relationship with him. Like we would get him together and play with our grandkids some, even though he was back with the biological family. And so anyway, I mean,
so y'all adopted him. Was it 6 months later?
I think that's right. It was September.
Yeah.
That we got the phone call. No, it was almost a whole year because I think it was August. It was almost a whole year later before the adoption was final. But yeah, so we've had him since then. And that also has been a rocky road. A lot of people in the church know that we have had some struggles there.
Just because of what he was brought up around and that sort of thing. I assume, and it's just so different because, and even though we have a blended family and those are the best families to foster. Let me include that in this podcast. Don't cut that part out. Okay. Because that is a tried and true statement. So the crazier dynamics of your family, the better suited you are to be a foster parent. And a lot of people would say, oh, well, I'm divorced. I don't need to be a foster parent, or I have a blended family. But no, those are the people who need to be fostering. Because a foster kid just usually falls right in. But
yeah, I don't know. Zane does have a lot of struggles, but he has been through, for his young life, he has been through so much. And I just pray and pray that the Lord will take all of that brokenness and just turn it into the most beautiful story.
When I pray for him, I always pray that God will just erase all those bad memories that he had, and not let him remember those and dwell on those.
Yes. And he has so much potential. So much potential.
He's got the sweetest voice.
And I was going to say, he can be so sweet.
Yeah.
And then he can be really not nice.
I think he ate his weight in mac and cheese last night.
I believe he did. The other thing, and just a verse that I wanted to talk about was Philippians 2:12. And this verse has also been, it's not my life verse, but I reference it all the time because the last part of it says, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. And when I do talk to people about what the Lord's doing in their lives, I always want to, I just always reference that verse because in my own life, it's so beautiful to look back and see. Just a few weeks ago, my youngest daughter, Mila, and I, had a bit of not really a falling out, but we had a disagreement about some spiritual stuff. And it's just, you can go back and you can see how things like that even help to grow you spiritually. And so, I just never want to be stale in my walk with the Lord. Mm-hmm. I want to continue working it out with fear and trembling until it's time to go. And that's the other thing. When I was a teenager, I had a cousin who was killed in a car wreck, and he was a member of our church. We were close in age, and from that time, I remember being terrified of dying. And that was one thing, after I was saved for real, there was a book I read. Dustin actually is one that recommended it, but Levi Lusko, Through the Eyes of a Lion. And that's actually a book that I've read probably 2 or 3 times now. And I don't know what it was about it, but Levi lost his daughter to an asthma attack. And there's something in that book that was so beautiful to help me. And like I say, it wasn't that I wasn't saved. And I was just very fearful of dying. But that's one of the things that the Lord's worked out for me. Like, I'm no longer scared of dying, at all. He's just put that to rest for me. But that book was very helpful in that for me. And I don't know why, but I wanted to expound on that. There's a Max Lucado book, and it's kind of hard to come by. But in the days when I struggled with, I feel like depression and darkness the most, it's called Every Day Deserves a Chance. I mean, it's kind of like a bathroom book, like one that you would just put by the toilet and read a chapter every now and then. And that's actually where I found it. Mark and I were babysitting for a couple after we had gotten together, and the lights had gone out at their house. And I found this book in the bathroom. And anyway, so I have gifted that book to several people that I knew, like a widow. I mean, because it's just talking about when you wake up that day and it's like, what? What do I do next? And that book is a really beautiful, I thought it was beautiful. Just talking about how you can make it through each day. So I don't know why, but I wanted to talk about those books. I do scare people, even my children. I talked about Mila a while ago, but I feel such a need to be bold in my faith. And you and I talked about this week. I just have this urgency to tell people about Jesus. And at some point it clicked with me that there's just nothing else that matters. It's just getting people to the foot of the cross. And And just like Jeff talked about in his sermon yesterday, like relationships in your life, I mean, nothing's perfect, but they improve. And just like what I've talked about with my family, my blended family, and our relationships are not perfect, but, you know, they can be what they are because of Christ. I mean, I'm able to message Mark's ex-wife and we can have that relationship. I mean, I'm able to pray for her. Like, she lost her mother this last year, and to be able to pray for her and to hurt for her and to be there with her family. I mean, what an honor. But the Lord has allowed that to happen, and it's through him that those relationships get better. Again, not perfect, but better.
Well, and as we, like Jeff was saying Sunday, as we draw closer to him, it makes all of our horizontal relationships better and different.
Yes.
You know? And there's no way that we can have some of those relationships without him. And just like in your blended family, it's only through him that you can have some of those relationships.
I mean, a lot of people look at it and they're like, how do you do that? And I'm like, Jesus. I mean, Jesus. Yeah. And that's, I mean, if I say nothing else that means anything today, that's the one thing. I want people to see Jesus in my life. I want to be transparent in my faith. I want to be genuine and authentic in my faith. I feel like that's the reason I'm here is to tell people about Jesus. 1 Peter 3:14-15 said, "Do not be fear or intimidated, but in your hearts regard Christ as the Lord and is holy, ready at any time to give a defense to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that is in you." And I guess I'm going to wrap it up with that. If you're good with me, getting close to wrapping up. So it was around 2 years ago that the Lord. I was reading a book then, and I'm not going to be able to tell you what the name of the book was or who the author was, but the Lord really worked on my heart through that book. And around the same time, there were two girls that had come to know the Lord who had gotten saved. And they were the most beautiful girls, just put together, you know, drove nice cars, very, you know, mannerly. And somehow, for some reason, I stumbled upon the fact that their home lives were just really crappy. And the more I prayed about it and the more I thought about it, it became my responsibility to reach people, specifically women, in my community for Christ. And that's where I have a group that meets in my home weekly called Nannette Nights. So that was a calling that the Lord just really placed on my life, because I'd lived in this bubble of fear, you know, like, because I had not, even though I'd been in church my entire life, I didn't feel like I was properly trained to spread or to share the gospel. But I see just generations and generations of kids who are not being raised in church. And even though I was raised in, I was raised in church. I had a firm foundation, and I still am fearful and not knowledgeable. I struggle with things, with knowledge on things. And I'm like, no more. Like, I've got to do something. And I mean, but it was a calling from the Lord. The Lord really placed that call on my life to open my home, to share with people. And I want to be that Carly Owens. I want to be that resource. And that has been such a blessing. Like, over this past summer, like, just two people messaged me, like, on Facebook Messenger, you know, and asked me to pray for them for a situation that was going on in their life. And that's such an honor when you get that, you know, to know that people would come to you as a resource to get to Jesus. But that's the thing. I feel like we live in such a blessed country, such a blessed community. We're sitting here airing a podcast that could go as far as the Lord wills it to go. We have less excuse now than ever because of social media, because of cell phones, because of everything. We have less of an excuse to know and to spread the gospel. And I feel like when I get to heaven, that is gonna, what did you do with what I gave you? And I want to be able to say that I hopefully did something right.
Well, and I think that's and another thing, 10 or 15 years ago, you might not have felt that way, but because of things that led up to where you are today, or even 2 years ago, God has really placed that on your heart.
Absolutely.
And, I think about the times that I've wasted not doing a lot of those things. But I know that God is using me now in ways that he's never used me before. But 10 years ago, I might not have been where I needed to be for him to use me in that way. But anyway.
Going back to Nettie Night, again, that was a call that he placed on my life, and I have gotten to see so much fruit just from that. And it was not anything. I really thought that was going to be a tool to reach people who would not ever step inside a church, and that's really not how he used it.
Yeah.
But it has been such a blessing, even though it wasn't how I thought he would use it, if that makes sense. It's still been such a blessing.
Well, you were just obedient in doing that. And Nettie is your grandmother name.
Yes, that's my grandmother name.
Yes.
That I hated until I heard the grandkids say it. And then I was sold.
Hillary claims she named you that.
Over a neti pot.
She called you Neti Pot.
I prefer not to be named after a snot remover.
No, but I've had the chance to go to a few of your Nettie nights. I have another Bible study that I do on that night, so I haven't been able to go a lot. But I do see that a lot of women there it's something that really they are yearning for, that close relationship with other women and just sharing Jesus with each other, and walking through some hard times that some of them are going through. I think several of them may be widows and some of them young mothers, I think. But I think just that community is good for them and is really helping them too. Well, I'll close with this. So, Nannette, what do you hope to see God do in your life this year? And since we're beginning a new year.
I did have this quote written down.
Okay.
Can I share it too?
Yeah.
It's a Steve Dillard quote. And it has been so impactful on my life.
A Steve Dillard quote.
Steve Dillard. Nothing you can do can make God love you any less, and nothing that you can do can make God love you any more. But so my desire this year, I would love just to see, I'd love to see that revival that I have prayed for. No lie. I would absolutely love to see. There's so much pride of life among us, and we have so far to go to rid ourselves of that, me included. But I just think if we just fall on our face and seek the Lord, that He would do like the most beautiful, miraculous things. And so that's my desire, and I just want to be all in. I want to be sold out to the Lord, whatever that means.
Okay. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Nannette and I spoke after the podcast was recorded about the unconditional love of God. There were times that she couldn't forgive herself, even though the Lord had already forgiven and forgotten her sin. As it says in Psalm 103, the Lord is compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, abounding in love. He will not always accuse, nor will he harbor his anger forever. He does not treat us as our sins deserve or repay us according to our iniquities. For as high as the heavens are above the earth, so great is his love for those who fear him. As far as the east is from the west, so far has He removed our transgressions from us. Thank you for joining us today. Check out our website at thejourneytosalvation.com. You will find additional information as well as a way to connect to us. And don't forget to subscribe. You'll be notified when new podcasts are available.